Hi, this is Mike Warner, author of the book Work Hard, Playlist Hard, and freelance music industry consultant. You're listening to the Your Morning Coffee podcast with my friends Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart. Weekly music news for the new music business.
From Luminate. Luminate releases 2024 mid-year music report.
From music business worldwide, there are 8 billion user-curated playlists on Spotify, 725 million created just this year, according to Daniel Ek.
And from the Wall Street Journal, country music is booming again. This time, the fans are in charge. Large and in charge. Well, Jay, we had one busy week last week.
Oh, we sure did.
But here we are. We're doing it again. Ready to rock, and we're glad you're here. So let's start the show right about now.
Stand by for transmission.
This is London calling.
Wake up! The revolution is at hand!
Your morning coffee is on the air. Standing by. Your morning coffee, the weekly music news for the new music business. It's the highly curated, agitated, advocated, moderated, and liberated digital music information that you need to know. We are your digital music authority. And now from our studios in Hollywood, California, here's your hosts, Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart.
Thank you, Mike Warner, for that cool intro. Mike's a friend, educator, author, speaker, executive, mountain climber. I made that part up. You can find him for speaking and consulting at askmikewarner.com. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, a good guy. He's held many roles in music over the past 20 years. Most recently, he was head of editorial marketing partnerships in North America with global music distributor Believe. Prior to that, he was the director of artist label and DSP relations over at Chartmetric.
Yes, sir. And boy, you weren't kidding. We had a crazy busy week. I think we dropped 3 podcasts. I think Glenn Peoples and I on the Billboard side dropped a couple of podcasts. I was a guest on a podcast. There was stories. Oh my gosh, it was a crazy, crazy week. Our special bonus episode, the Luminate 2024 mid-year report with Jamie Markinette dropped. And thank you again, Jamie. What a great conversation that was. And, you know, Jamie is Luminate's VP of Music Insights and Industry Relations. And he joined us to break down that amazing report. And then the other special episode we dropped, and we're so thankful that Will joins us. And that was Will Page. And it was titled A Case for Completion. And that's based on a piece that he wrote. So check out those 2 bonus episodes, Will Page and Jamie Markinette, that dropped this last week.
Yeah, we do other things, although it doesn't seem like it sometimes when we have that many podcasts cranking out. And by the way, How the Sausage is Made, Jay's go-to source for the newsletter and podcast, top resources for running your morning coffee. That's over on Roster. My friend, music industry consultant Jay Gilbert, provides his go-to resources for running your morning coffee. That was a great piece.
Well, thank you. Those kind friends over at Roster, gave me the opportunity to sort of call out some of our favorite writers and sources for music industry news, trends, and what I use to build Your Morning Coffee, the newsletter, and then you and I use that for the podcast. So check out that list of our favorite sources, and thank you, Roster, again for that. That's in Your Morning Coffee this week.
Indeed. And you and Glenn People, my friend, have been incredibly busy. 2 new episodes from Billboard's Behind the Set List podcast series dropped last week. with more on the way. Good ones too at that, I gotta say.
We had a fun week. We interviewed Pat Monahan from Train. What a great interview that was. And that dropped this last week. They're currently on a co-headlining tour covering much of the United States out there with REO Speedwagon. We also dropped an interview with Matt Carney. Matt recently released his 8th studio album. He talked about being a 6th generation Oregonian and talked a lot about being an Oregon Ducks fan and the thrill of hearing his song Coming Home. It gets played at Ducks home games. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, and I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, great stuff. And you've got the Melissa Etheridge episode dropping soon. Check out her 2-part docuseries, which I have not watched it. I do want to do
good.
it. It's called I'm Not Broken. It's on Paramount Plus. And then, because if that's not enough, Jay, you also apparently are recording Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction this week. They recently announced a tour with Love and Rockets and a new song, Imminent Redemption, that drops July 24th. And that's featuring, of course, the classic Jane's Addiction lineup, frontman Perry Farrell, guitarist Dave Navarro, drummer Stephen Perkins, and bassist Eric Avery. And I believe it's been 14 years since all the original guys got together. So that's going to be one heck of an episode.
Yeah, looking forward to that interview coming up. You know, a couple of stories before we jump into the meat this week. There were a couple of stories of one from Rolling Stone magazine, and they listed the 100 best album covers of all time, and then like a day later, they dropped the 50 worst album covers of all time. And this is, it's so subjective, right? It's sort of like all the fallout from the Apple Music 100 best albums of all time. And, you know, everybody has their opinion, and that's fine. Music is subjective, so just because somebody ranks something at number one doesn't mean that it's going to be your number one. But I thought it was really interesting because I have a coffee table book here with, you know, just tons of classic album covers, you know, on the jazz side and the rock side. And man, it just brought back so many great memories. But as I looked through Rolling Stone's list, and I don't agree or disagree with it, I just thought it was a really cool thing to look through. I listed my top 5, and I'd love to hear some of yours too. So these aren't necessarily the best album covers ever made, but they're my favorites, right?
Yeah.
And because of the era that I grew up in, right? So here are my top 5. Number 1, Elton John, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. That was designed by Alan Aldridge and Harry Wilcock. It's that beautiful cartoony artwork, and it's a gatefold and comes with 2 booklets, and it was just a stellar package. Number 2, Cheap Trick Dream Police. That was Reed Miles who photographed that. And the Japanese band Baby Metal actually released sort of a takeoff on that cover, which is adorable. You got to see it. Anyway, Reed Miles is sort of called the Norman Rockwell of photographers. He did like Chicago's Greatest Hits, that art, you know, that iconic cover. Anyway, great stuff. The third one, Alice Cooper, From the Inside. And if you haven't listened to this album, it's unlike any Alice Cooper album you've ever heard because it's a concept album that he and Bernie Taupin, you know, Elton's lyricist, that they wrote together about basically kicking their addiction to alcohol. And they brought in, you know, Dick Wagner, Nigel Olsson and Dee Murray from Elton John's band. And of course, like I mentioned, Bernie Taupin co-wrote the lyrics. Steve Lukather from Toto, Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, legendary bassist Leland Sklar. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's a fantastic album. And I had the opportunity to be interviewed by Alice Cooper on his radio show, his syndicated radio show. And at the end of each episode, he asks you, what song do you want to, you know, play us out with? And mine was For Veronica's Sake, which is from the Inside. Anyway, my last one, just a classic album. Well, no, actually, I have 2 more. The Beatles' Revolver, of course, by Klaus Voormann. I mean, can you imagine? He got to see them in the cavern, and unbelievable. And then the last one is Crowded House, their self-titled debut album. Their bass player, Nick Seymour, did that painting, but he also painted Temple of Low Men, Together Alone, Woodface, Recurring Dream, which is their greatest hits, the very best of Crowded House. So those are my favorites as far as cover art goes that I could just have framed on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you know, and you and I both started we were very, very young buying albums. And we kind of talked about this on the vinyl special. And you forget that this is before, there was never, at least as far as I knew at the time, there was not really TV stuff. You wouldn't see these artists on TV.
Not much.
So the only insight into what these people looked like or what they were doing was the album cover. And like you, I would just stare at these records.
Devour them.
Of course, devour them. And so amongst the first albums that I bought, again, I was in middle elementary school, certainly Sgt. Pepper. And, and I remember looking at all of the different people and maybe I recognize like W.C. Fields or somebody in it.
Marilyn
but I remember
Monroe
asking
or something.
Yeah, right. I remember asking my parents, who is this and who is this? And, it brought up a conversation.
Yeah.
And of course, now you look at that and that was done at a time when they had to license, and they did reach out to some of those people in that album cover, but not everybody. So they were the Beatles. They got to do what they want. And then of course, I think we mentioned this in the vinyl special as well. The first album I bought was Inagata Davida by Iron Butterfly, and it was really just the cover was just a picture of them on stage with that big oil, the classic San Francisco oil, kind of thing behind them. But to me, that just epitomized the psychedelic era, and I would just look at that and it's like, oh my God, that was so cool. And then another one I got, which was Through the Past Darkly, a Rolling Stones kind of a hits album that was basically hexagonal, and it had this picture of them pushed up against a piece of glass on the front, and on the back the glass is broken and you see them. And it was one of the last sessions they did with Brian Jones. So again, those are just like, they were just insights. They were just looking into the, you just kind of sat there for hours and looked at those albums.
And it was real art.
Fun.
There's a documentary that you and I talked about the company Hypnosis that did some of those classic Dark Side of the Moon and McCartney's Greatest Hits.
Led Zeppelin records.
Led Zeppelin. And if you haven't seen it, it's really, really great. There was some sad news this week. We were just broken to hear that Eddie Rosenblatt, the longtime Geffen Records president, sadly died at 89. I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, and he would come to our conventions, when I worked at Universal, and we did all those Geffen things. And I'll never forget, at one convention, he opened it up with this line: "Ours is a business of illusion and bullshit." And I never forgot that. It's sort of like the Doc McGee quote, "It's big because we say it's big." And he took Geffen and then, of course, DGC Records. They in the day, they were the label. They outperformed everybody.
They had a run, absolutely. And he was at a number of different things, but a number of different places in his career, but certainly the Geffen Records one was the biggie. By the way, Grammys are now accepting entries. That's for the Recording Academy, of course. There's a story in the newsletter about that. Grammy season is here, and your duty to uphold music's highest honor begins now. We're thrilled to announce the online entry process for the 67th Annual Grammy Awards is now open.
Right. According to the Recording Academy, to ensure a seamless experience for our members, the awards team is also hosting a live demo of the entry process and a tour of the new entry site on Wednesday, July 24th. That's at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And you can join just by registering. The link is in your morning coffee. Grammy season.
Yes, it is indeed. And a special happy birthday shout out to LYRICFIND. Happy 20th birthday, in fact, to LYRICFIND. And it's a birthday that comes with another milestone. The company's database of song lyrics has just passed 10 million songs.
Incredible. Wow. Yeah. LYRICFIND, they have partnerships with more than 50,000 publishers and has more than 100 employees. And, its DSP partners include TikTok Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Deezer, Google, Pandora. And I got to speak with LYRICFIND founder and CEO Darryl Ballentine this week and wish him a little bit of a happy birthday. Let's listen in. Darryl, good to see you. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk about LYRICFIND, because lyrics are one of the top search terms on the internet and have been for a long, long time. LYRICFIND sort of makes sure that lyrics are accurate, but more importantly, that the writers are paid. And I'd like to talk about that. It sounds like a massive undertaking. For those with zero prior knowledge, what does LYRICFIND do and how do they do it?
I mean, the short answer is it's a lot of data and a lot of math. But the longer answer is that we're pulling in ownership information that goes along with our licenses from publishers and independent artists, and that to make sure that we know who owns what and where they own it. Obviously, with publishing, it can be different owners in different countries, and splits can vary within the country, and has to all be divided up. So we take all of that information, pair that with all of the usage information from our clients to make sure that we're paying everybody the right amount for what content was used, where it was used, and who used it, since rates vary among the implementations, to have accurate reporting globally from our tens of thousands of publishers that we work with.
Yeah, today it seems like a lot of listeners have become creators and in so many different ways. So talk a bit about how the use of lyrics in user-generated content, UGC, like lyric videos and things like that. How do you wrap your head around that?
Yeah, it's a challenge because there's so much of that content that's created. So even just identifying it, uh, and identifying that the audio is used in a YouTube video is easy enough. There's lots of great solutions out there for that. But then to realize that the lyrics are in the visual is a whole other difficult problem that has its own challenges. So we've been working a lot with record labels and artists to have them create their own lyric videos rather than relying on UGC creation, because then they know the lyrics are going to be accurate, or they're using our database to create those videos that we've already done the transcription and synchronization. They know that the video is going to be generally a better looking, higher quality video. And from a monetization aspect, it goes on their channel, and they're able to then monetize it as a premium music video rather than UGC monetization, which is a lot cheaper. And the people who are viewing that video are seeing their channel, not the end user who created the UGC versions channel. So they get the compound benefits of people coming and then viewing other videos and subscribing and seeing their playlists and that. So there's a huge benefit to artists and labels taking control of that content themselves. I still personally think that they should allow the UGC content to be there and monetize it, and don't block it unless it's really bad for some reason. But there's so much more benefit to controlling that content and getting the benefits directly.
Yeah, I agree. LYRICFIND is celebrating its 20th anniversary as, the trusted source for lyrics, data licensing. Your client list includes, TikTok music, Amazon music, Google, Xperi, YouTube music, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about the tools you have for artists, labels, publishers, really of all sizes, to monetize lyrics.
Yeah, so obviously outside of the lyric video solutions that we have, we do have a verified artist platform. If people go to LYRICFIND.com, they can see the sign up information there to give artists and labels control of their lyrics on our system. They can add that content, synchronize the content. They can add translations and other data along with it. It's a platform that is free to use. We don't charge people to manage their lyrics or distribute their lyrics. To our clients, we want to make sure that they are able to have that content there and get that exposure. If an artist owns the rights themselves, then they can sign up and license that content to us as well and get paid for that use and earn the revenue from it. And beyond the lyric video side, we also have a number of other video tools for creating a Spotify Canvas video, Apple Motion Art, music videos, social videos, all these other things. We acquired a company called Rotor Videos, primarily based out of Belfast, at the end of last year. So that's all being integrated with the LYRICFIND system, but you can also go to rotorvideos.com and just sign up there and make all of these different types of videos to optimize your presence on all sorts of music platforms.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on 20 years. That's incredible. You sort of touched on it a second ago, but just to add an exclamation point on it, where can our listeners learn more about you and LYRICFIND?
They can go to LYRICFIND.com. There's lots of information there about all the different services and places that we provide content and things for artists. Me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn or just Darryl@LYRICFIND.com. Happy to connect with anyone and everyone out there.
Thanks, Darryl. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah, that's quite an accomplishment. Quite an accomplishment. And again, one of my, talking about when you're kids, I remember, with my mother sitting there and trying to figure out the words to American Pie and her explaining what certain things meant. Again, I was like an elementary school kid, but boy, it's now you can just go and find them on LYRICFIND. It's amazing the tools that we have now.
And they
so
focus to make sure that they're accurate too, which a lot of these sites, they'll just put up what somebody thinks they're hearing. LYRICFIND does a really good job of making sure they're accurate, and more importantly, like you heard during the interview, to make sure the writers get paid, and that's the key takeaway, right?
That's right, and that's why it is super important. But Jay, before we jump into the stories, let's thank our sponsors, because we are so lucky to have so many great sponsors help us with the show. Yeah,
we sure are. A special thank you to our sponsor, Music.ai. Music.ai is a trailblazing AI-powered music and audio platform offering an expansive suite of over 50 stackable AI audio solutions. Want to change the tempo or pitch of your song, adjust instruments or vocals, mute background noises? Music.ai makes it super easy. It's embraced by record labels, agencies, tech firms, and developers. Music.ai is synonymous with audio innovation. With over 45 million users, their tools process over 2 million minutes of audio every day. They can process yours. Visit music.ai to get started.
Yeah, great stuff over there. Great tools. Today's podcast is also brought to you by friends at Bandzoogle. Built by musicians for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform that makes it easy to build a stunning website and online store for your music in minutes. All the features you need are already built in, including dozens of fully customizable templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free crowdfunding and fan subscription features, mailing list tools to grow your fan list, integrations with Bandcamp, SoundCloud, YouTube, Bands in Town, and more, so you can easily add content for from your other online profiles, and live support from their music-friendly team 7 days a week. Website plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes hosting and your own free custom domain name. Our podcast listeners can jump over to bandzoogle.com, try it free for 30 days, and use the promo code MORNINGCOFFEE, that's all one word, to get 15% off the first year of any subscriptions. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code MORNINGCOFFEE.
Yes, sir. And a special thank you to Hypebot and Bruce Houghton. Since 2004, Hypebot has chronicled the new music industry and trends and technologies that are changing how music is discovered, consumed, marketed, and monetized. It's edited daily by founder Bruce Houghton with help from Alana Bonilla. Hypebot and sister blog Music Think Tank are published by live music discovery and marketing platform Bands in Town.
Indeed, Bands in Town. Over 80 million live music fans trust Bands in Town to get personalized concert alerts, recommendations, and messages from their favorite artists. It's the #1 artist service platform, connecting over 590,000 artists with their super fans. Managers, labels, agencies, and artists access their own dashboard to manage and promote their tour dates across all platforms.
Yeah, and finally, a special thank you to Billboard Pro. You want to know what everyone in the music business is talking about? Get in the know with Billboard Pro. Billboard is offering your Morning Coffee readers a special 50% discount off of the price of your subscription. Click on the link in your morning coffee.
Yes, indeed. Big thanks again to our amazing sponsors, Bandzoogle, Music.ai, Hypebot, and Bands in Town. We certainly appreciate it. And now, of course, I get to hang out every week with who? That's Jay Gilbert, music industry consultant, curator of the weekly Your Morning Coffee newsletter, and a former executive with Universal Music, Sony Music, and Warner Music Groups, and just an all-around groovy dude.
Checks in the mail. Thank you, sir. And I get to do this show every single week with Mike Etchart, longtime host of Sound and Vision Radio, formerly of SST Records, Warner Music, Capital EMI, and Universal Music Group.
Indeed, a checkered past indeed. Well, let's jump into the stories, Jay. The first one is from Luminate. Luminate releases our 2024 mid-year music report. And don't forget, of course, the Your Morning Coffee podcast special bonus episode is out now. We got a chance to talk with Jamie, Mark, and Annette to break down the Luminate 2024 mid-year report. And oh boy, it is pretty fun reading.
Yeah, it really is. Luminate, if you don't know, they're the preeminent entertainment data and insights company, unleashing access to the most essential, objective, and trustworthy information across music, film, television, gaming, short-form video, and much, much more. Luminate's databases house information compiled from over 500 verified sources. And so they're managing, get this, more than 20 trillion different data points.
Yeah, the increase of total streams by volume continues to drive the story, not surprisingly, of today's music ecosystem. And the first 6 months of this year were no different. In the first half of 2024, the industry saw persistent streaming growth of core genres in the U.S., led by Latin music. Again, no surprise there. The trend of global streaming growth at large also remained consistent. In fact, global on-demand audio streaming was up 15.1% when compared to the first half of 2023, but it wasn't all streaming, Jay.
No, it wasn't. Physical music still matters. With key new releases from the likes of Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Billie Eilish, the first half of 2024 saw an organic evolution in regards to feeding superfans' appetites with multiple versions of physical products. In fact, the top 10 best-selling albums of the year so far saw an average 7 different vinyl variants each.
Yeah, that's crazy. As always, the charts included in this report are presented in partnership with Billboard, Luminate's exclusive chart partner for more than 3 decades. Streaming activity continues to grow year over year, but the consumption landscape is ever evolving. The first trend of our 2024 mid-year music report explores representation of major label versus independent artists across the streaming pyramid.
Did you know that indie artists made up 62.1% of all artists who accumulated between 1 million and 10 million U.S. on-demand audio streams, first half of 2024 compared to the first half of 2023? In fact, the share of indie artists who earned more than 500 million on-demand audio streams increased by a little more than 2% in the first half of 2024 compared to 2023.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. Live music maintains its prominent spot in the superfan experience, but how does touring in a specific market affect the local streaming consumption? Well, in the report, they analyzed data across 50 artists, 990 shows, and 129 U.S. markets to find that the median event yielded a 42% growth in local DMA on-demand audio streaming during the week of an event. But genre matters.
It sure does. Artists from the U.S. still hold the highest global on-demand audio streaming share, but that share is down 0.53 percentage points in the first half of 2024, showing a continued growth of global consumption of artists from other countries. Here's some fun facts.
Yes, indeed. Fun fact. So global on-demand audio streaming was up 15.1%. In the U.S., streaming was up 8%.
Digital downloads are still around, but they were down about 10%.
Right, but U.S. physical album sales, we're talking vinyl, CD, and cassettes, were up 3.8%.
U.S. catalog, that's 18 months or older, U.S. catalog market share is roughly the same as last year, 73%, but total catalog consumption was up 7.5%.
Right. So the 5 fastest growing U.S. streaming genres. Okay, here they are. Number 1, Latin.
Yep.
Number 2, rock. Number 3, pop. Number 4, country. And number 5, Christian and gospel.
Yeah, and get this. There were 29,000 artists in the first half to reach between 1 and 10 million streams. That's an increase of about 1,400 artists. Over 62% of those were indie artists.
But artists reaching 10 to 50 million streams were up slightly, and nearly 63% of those were from the majors.
Yeah, yep. It's not that long tail, is it? So there was a great piece in Glenn Peoples' Billboard newsletter called The Ledger. We talk about that often. And it led to this more I guess, longer story with more details. And the headline was 5 more takeaways from Luminate's mid-year report. The album lives, catalog versus current, and here's one, Latin's disadvantage, and more.
Right. So streaming, album sales, and Taylor Swift, not surprisingly, led the U.S. market to growth in the first half of 2024. Here are a few more insights from Glenn's piece worth considering.
Yeah, the first one is at the midway point of 2024, which is where we're at, the recorded music business is in fine form. Streaming is growing, physical purchases remain strong, and download purchases are so few that any declines are barely noticeable amidst streaming success.
Right, so digital's share of the market rose slightly to 95.3% of equivalent album units, that's EAUs, up from 95.2% at mid-year 2023, 92.3% at mid-year 2022, and 91.2% at mid-year 2021. If that seems higher than some other figures you've spotted at Billboard, don't worry, because Luminate tracks only sales and purchases. Comparing its data to other available data is like comparing apples and oranges. Public companies that report recorded music revenues have a lower digital share than Luminate's consumption-based numbers.
Right. So at Universal Music Group, digital's global share was almost 70% in 2023, while at Warner Music Group, it was 67%. Those companies' digital shares are lower than what's found in the Luminate report for a couple of reasons. First, both companies get more than 10% of their recorded music revenue from physical sales globally. Second, music companies group record labels with merchandise, various licensing revenues, and expanded rights revenues, things not tracked by Luminate.
So Luminate's digital share is also higher than the RIAA's widely observed industry numbers, which had digital at 86.4% of recorded music revenue in the U.S. in 2023. But the RIAA tracks a few things that Luminate doesn't. That includes sound exchange collections, that's encompassing satellite radio and cable music services such as Music Choice and Stingray, which last year accounted for 5.8% of total revenue, and of course synchronization royalties, which accounted for 2.4%.
Yeah, long live the album. Not many years ago, the album was declared dead, and some people predicted single-track releases would become the standard. Sure, the album has been forever unbundled, and artists tend to release individual tracks ahead of an album's release. Yet the format continues to thrive. At the midway point of 2022, 4 albums had more than 1 million equivalent album units. Last year, 5 albums had surpassed that threshold by the middle of the year. And this year, 7 albums topped 1 million EAUs, which is that equivalent album units.
Right, so catalog didn't kill current music. Catalog share of total EAUs was 72.8%, exactly equal to the prior year period. This ends a run of increasing catalog market share that led to much, and some might say unnecessary, hand-wringing over the popularity of current music being released by record labels. By comparison, catalog share was 72.4% at mid-year in 2022 and 69.4% at mid-year 2021. Luminate, by the way, classifies catalog music as being more than 18 months old, of course. So not all catalog music can be considered old, of course.
Right. Taylor Swift's 2019 album, Lover, which was number 10 overall and number 5 in album sales at the mid-year mark this year, falls into the catalog category. So does her 2020 album Folklore, which ranked number 8 in album sales. SZA's SOS, released in December of 2022, reached catalog status in June, even though it was a number 5 album on the in the mid-year 2024 report with 106 million equivalent album units. These are examples of quote-unquote shallow catalog that have achieved a degree of longevity, not deep catalog, such as reissues and those golden oldies.
Yeah, shallow catalog. So another point mentioned in this article, Latin music has what Glenn says as a chart disadvantage. Latin music streaming is 32% ad-supported, far below the 19.6% average for all genres, and less than half of the 12.9% of country music. Now that matters for both chart position and industry revenues, as premium streams produce greater per stream royalties than ad-supported streams. In addition, premium streams are weighted more heavily when determining chart position. To compare albums and tracks that are consumed in a variety of formats, physical albums, downloads, and streams, Luminate converts streams into EAUs, and ad-supported streams convert to EAUs at a lower rate than premium streams do.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Ad-supported streams produce lower per-stream royalties than premium streams. Given Latin music's relatively high percentage of ad-supported streams, that's bad news for the genre, whose streams convert to EAUs at about 1,500 streams per EAU, much higher than country and pop, which have the lowest genre conversion rate at about 1,360 streams per EAU. Latin's high proportion of ad-supported streaming also matters because it tends to under-index in terms of sales. No other genre has lower digital track sales, digital album sales, physical album sales as a percentage of EAUs.
Right. So another point in there, big populations, small revenue. Developing markets have huge populations but relatively little revenue. India, which has a population of about 1.4 billion and 659 million smartphone users, has the lowest proportion of premium streams in the 49 countries tracked by Luminate. Just 9% of all on-demand audio and video streams in the country are premium streams, which means 92.3% of all streams, that's in India, come from ad-supported streaming.
Interesting. With a population of 275 million, Indonesia is the fourth most populated country worldwide. But in terms of music streaming, the country has the second lowest proportion of premium streams at 15.5%. Globally, the average premium share is 57.5% and is highest in European countries, including Norway at almost 94%, Iceland at 93%, Sweden at about 90%, and the Netherlands at 87.6%, and Denmark at 87.1%.
Yeah, just really interesting numbers and data and all kinds of stuff that we geek out on.
Yeah.
It's fun to hear what's going on, of course, in the rest of the world, because or at least I certainly look at it through U.S. eyes and recognize that it's way different going on, as we talked about, in India and Indonesia. And, I think we're kind of gently trying, at least here, to kind of maybe get rid of that ad-supported tier, but it's certainly huge around the world.
Absolutely.
And so that provides a bit of a conundrum. Mm-hmm. Well, our number 2 story, Jay, it's from our good friends over at Music Business Worldwide. There are 8 billion user-created playlists on Spotify, 725 million created this year alone. Our other friend Daniel X says, how about that?
That's a lot of playlists. Spotify has been working to make playlists a more attractive aspect of music streaming and potentially make them into a feature that can bring in more revenue. So far, the effort seems to be paying off.
Right. So according to co-founder and CEO Daniel Ek, the Sweden-headquartered music streaming service is now host to some 8 billion user-curated playlists. And of those, 725 million were created since the start of 2024 alone. That's on top of the playlist created by Spotify itself.
Right. These are just user curated. And here's a fun fact. The country in the world that makes the most playlists per user, South Korea, 50% more than any other. And Daniel Ek wrote that in a recent LinkedIn post. And we can expect there to be many, many more playlists on Spotify in the future, as the company is now bringing AI technology to its playlist features.
Indeed, in April, Spotify announced the beta launch of AI Playlist, a tool that allows subscribers to use text prompts to automatically create new playlists. Beginning with iOS and Android users in the UK and Australia, subscribers will be able to type in prompts along the lines of an indie folk playlist to give my brain a big warm hug, or relaxing music to tide me over during allergy season. Or a playlist that makes me feel like the main character. An AI playlist will spit out a list of suggested tracks.
Users can also, they'll be able to refine their results and, have additional text prompts such as quote unquote more pop or less upbeat. What's more, Spotify may be counting on the popularity of advanced playlisting to attract more users to its higher tier subscription. I know that's super important to them. According to a report in Bloomberg in June, Spotify will be launching new playlisting features and song management tools as a part of a pricier new tier that will include hi-fi audio, a core ask of Spotify subscribers, and a long-awaited promise from the streaming service.
Yeah, so it's not clear whether AI playlists will be part of this new tier, which is expected to launch later this year, or whether Spotify has other playlist tricks up its sleeve. What is clear is that Spotify has been working to add value to its paid subscriptions at a time when streaming services, along with its competitors, have been raising prices, at least partly at the behest of music companies that have long argued music is underpriced in the consumer market.
Right. After instituting its first ever price hike in the summer of 2024, that raised the price of a U.S. individual premium subscription from $9.99 per month to $10.99 per month. Spotify has continued these price hikes, raising its U.S. monthly individual premium price to $11.99 this past spring.
So on company earnings calls, Daniel Ek has said that Spotify has been shifting its focus from building a paying subscriber base to increasing margins in order to ensure profitability, something that until recently has eluded the streaming giant.
Yeah, he also said that the company raises prices. He wants to ensure that customers are getting additional value for that money. To that end, Spotify has expanded in recent years from music to podcasts, audiobooks, which are now part of its premium subscriptions. As of last fall, individual premium plans came with 15 hours of audiobooks per month, for example.
However, not all of Spotify's moves to increase its margins through new and differentiated tiers have met with approval from the music industry. U.S. publishers and songwriters are up in arms over a decision this spring by Spotify to classify its default premium subscription tier as a bundle, given that it now includes audiobooks. That's because, under the U.S. Copyright Royalty Board's Phonorecords IV agreement, streaming services can pay lower mechanical royalties for bundled services than for standalone music services.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. And the final thing I'll say on this is, Spotify's move, that resulted in the Mechanical Licensing Collective, the MLC, suing Spotify in U.S. federal court. Among the MLC's allegations are that Spotify's new audiobooks only tier isn't what it claims to be and actually offers access to music as well at a lower price point than the traditional premium tier. So more to come.
More to come. And by the way, highly recommended. You have not heard your favorite song yet, How Streaming Changes Music. That's a wonderful book by former Spotify data alchemist Glenn McDonald. And boy, you want to talk about seeing how the sausage is made and all the stuff that's going on in the background. Fascinating read.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, he was one of the people who, was the architect of these Spotify algorithms. We had him on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Such a great book. And again, if you missed that, the title of the book is You Have Not Heard Your Favorite Song Yet? And that's by Glenn McDonald. The final story this week is from the Wall Street Journal, and the headline was, Country Music is Booming Again. This time, the fans are in charge.
Everybody wanna be a cowboy, drive a jumbo, whip a John Deere. Everybody want a backwoods farm with a tub full of ice down beer. Must be something in the water flowing out of the hollow blue collar. Must have caught a new wind. Doggone dadgummit, didn't see that coming. Country's cool again.
Led by a range of artists like Shabuzi, Zach Bryan, and Lainey Wilson, and buoyed by streaming and younger fans, the Heartland genre is having a moment that's only expected to get bigger.
Right, so country music, a genre often ignored or even scorned by cultural elites, is having its biggest boom in 30 years, with an unusual number of artists topping the charts, dominating streaming, striking branding deals, and selling out shows and festivals everywhere.
Yeah, Aaron Bay-Shuck said it's country music's turn. He's the chief executive and co-chairman of Warner Records, home of Zach Bryan, whose intense stripped-back country folk songs have quickly garnered him a devoted following. A few years ago, Bryan was performing in Boston at a 1,200 capacity club. Now the Oklahoman is selling out multiple nights at the city's nearby 65,000 capacity stadium.
Well, the article goes on to say, across the musical universe, country is cool again. This year, for the first time, the country festival Stagecoach sold out before its better-known mainstream counterpart, Coachella. Stagecoach sold around 85,000 tickets, a new high at record-breaking speed, according to AEG Presents.
Yeah, authenticity is selling right now, says rising country singer Megan Maroney. She opens the Kenny Chesney, Nashville's Nissan Stadium in August. She said, everyone, especially after the pandemic, is eager to hear honest songwriting and storytelling.
So black country hip-hop act Shabuzi recently topped the Billboard Hot 100 all-genre singles chart with his crossover smash, A Bar Song, Tipsy, which simultaneously ruled the Hot Country Songs chart. Rock-infused country singer-songwriter Lainey Wilson opened for the Rolling Stones at a June 30th concert in Chicago. Even acts outside country like Beyonce and Post Malone, both Texans, by the way, are jumping on the bandwagon with country albums. Breakout pop star Sabrina Carpenter's summer chart topper Please, Please, Please has a good bit of Nashville twang to it as well.
Yeah, I saw Lainey Wilson at Nissan Stadium a few weeks ago in front of 50,000, and she just killed it. The country explosion in part reflects country fans' belated embrace of the streaming music format after years of lagging far behind other genres in popularity on streaming, due largely to older fans sticking with radio and CDs. Country has caught fire online, driven by younger listeners and spearheaded by sustained success of Morgan Wallen, a rock and hip-hop influenced singer whose albums Dangerous in 2021 and One Thing at a Time in 2023 have for years now remained lodged near the top of the industry's most important charts. Country, in many ways, is playing catch-up, music executives say, at a time when hip-hop, by far America's favorite popular genre, is ceding market share and cultural clout.
So country music streaming rose 23.5% last year across U.S. music services, adding 20 billion more streams, nearly double the growth of the industry generally, according to data tracker Luminate. That made country the fastest growing genre in the U.S. last year, including both streaming and traditional sales. So far in 2024, the trend is continued. As of mid-year, country accounted for 8.8% of total U.S. music consumption, Luminate says. That's up from 8.4% during a similar period in 2023 and 7.8% back in 2022.
Right, and Spotify says U.S. country music listening has increased nearly 110% over the last 5 years on streaming services, the world's most popular. Judging by Spotify's numbers, the biggest jumps in U.S. country music streaming have come from the middle of the nation. Columbus, for example, they saw a 700% increase in 5 years, 700%, suggesting that non-coastal fans have adopted streaming in droves, and they remain the lifeblood of country music consumption.
Now, this is not country's first rodeo, no pun intended, as far as being embraced by mainstream culture. There's a history of country crazes spanning from the 1960s, that's with the Rolling Stones, the Byrds, Flying Burrito Brothers, to the 1980s, John Travolta's 1980 urban cowboy film, you may remember. Mm-hmm. And the 1990s, of course, was Garth Brooks, Shania Twain, and the Chicks popularizing country in the suburbs. So we've seen these fluctuating trends over the years, for sure.
Yeah, country's first rodeo. I see what you did there. Historically, country radio has played an outsized role in determining genre's biggest hits, right? With stations taking their cues from the promotional activities of record labels. There's notoriously limited space on country radio playlists, and programmers traditionally focus on giving mainstream country fans what they seem to want. As a result, many of the seemingly low-profile artists that, say, Gen Z fans might be most passionate about, well, they're kind of travel far to see in concert, might not get worked by labels to radio, industry executives say.
But the article goes on to say, what's different about this country boom is that it's mostly fans in the driver's seat. So says Melinda Newman, executive editor for the West Coast in Nashville at Billboard magazine. The audience is the gatekeeper, she says, adding, country hasn't been here before. But country's latest bonanza isn't just about fans transitioning to streaming.
In today's increasingly genre-agnostic, playlist-making culture, more country artists, many of whom grew up on hip-hop, they're incorporating other genres from rap, like Jelly Roll, or hard rock and metal, like Hardy, to pop, Dasha, Megan Maroney. It's evolving.
Yes, so Warner Music Nashville co-president Chris Lacey says this attracts fans of all those genres, creating growth, and the growth begets new hybrid music. While country music has long mixed with other music styles, there's a sense that in the wake of artists like Casey Musgraves and Lil Nas X, the genre is becoming more welcoming of black, female, gay, and non-traditional artists, even if such acts remain rare on the radio airwaves. So this story, Jay, reminds me of when SoundScan first got implemented.
Yeah.
And it should have been a surprise to no one, but it apparently was a surprise to everyone that, oh my God, lots of country music fans were buying albums that weren't represented prior to SoundScan's introduction. So but it is cyclical, like everything. It's very cyclical, and you see these things kind of, go in waves, and it's certainly a big old wave right now.
Yeah, it's nice seeing Latin music and country music sort of have their day in the sun, and it's a global world now. All of these styles and genres, they're sort of blurring and bending, and it's a real exciting time for music.
It is indeed. So as we wrap up the show, if you enjoy the show, please tell one friend. I know Jay and I would certainly appreciate it. And big thanks to Bandzoogle, Music.ai, Hypebot, and Bands in Town, our wonderful team of sponsors. We certainly appreciate it. And on behalf of my good friend Jay Gilbert, I am Mike Etchart, and that means I get to say thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Your Morning Coffee Podcast.
You've been listening to Your Morning Coffee, the weekly music news program for the new music business. Join Jay Gilbert and Mike Etchart next time for the digital music news you need to know.